Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with Urgent Assist by CPS Protect. You can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code Slam the Gavel for 60% off your first year of Urgent Assist. This is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narcus Golan, passed away in the fall of 2022. Bradley is autistic and needs structured and routine therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian Social Services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known, and we have Judge Ann Donnelly to thank for this. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul, 518-474-8390 to please keep Bradley here safe in the United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. Also, go to the site pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,500 more signatures. That's pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,500 more signatures to open a case. Very important. And welcome you all. It's Labor Day. And I want to thank all the laborers out there, Special Local 449. For all you do. I also have a return guest, Amy Palacios. She was last on my podcast, season 3, episode 147, 165, 179, and season 4, episode 15, where she updated her case, standing firm with the faith of God through the extortion of family court. And she has a case where her 2 ex-husbands are fighting in court with the same lawyer. And that's a conflict of interest. Attorney Jay White is perpetuating 14 years of corruption. Her first ex-husband paid the second ex-husband $50,000 to be a false witness against her. And I welcome you, Amy Palacios. You've been arguing in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, Cabarrus County, actually, for such a long time. I don't know how you're doing it. How are you holding up?
I'm good. Good to be with you today.
I'm glad you're here. So you're still getting threats of going to jail for non-support, which is unconstitutional, as well as debtor's prison, which was abolished in 1833. Yet judges still think they could send parents to debtor's prison.
It's just a constant threat for me. I have 2 ex-husbands. I have been in Mecklenburg County for about 10 years, and then I went to Cabarrus County for going on over like close to 6 or 7 years now. So it's been a lot of time in both counties with the same games. I'm on a couple domestic violence groups and advocacy groups in the area, and both counties are still pulling the same games. Even one of the girls from our group a couple weeks ago, she was telling me about how she was put in handcuffs in the courtroom for not giving information about a daycare when she had already written all the information down. This was in Mecklenburg County. And Mecklenburg County was the one that put me in jail for the weekend, claiming I didn't do a psych evaluation and I needed to be kept for my kids when I had already done 2 evaluations that they had requested of. But they kept saying, oh, that's not what, you didn't do that. So then, what is happening is my ex-husband's doing the same thing in Cabarrus County that then he didn't get away with in Mecklenburg County, where I had told you that even he was trying to put me in jail for not doing a psych evaluation in Cabarrus County. And I had done one. And then they said, no, that's not correct. You have to do a different one. We give the order to the psychiatrist, right? And so then I did what they said. Then they have still said, no, that's not what I've requested of. So I want to know that how a judge in on the bench can know better what a medical field knows about what a psychiatric evaluation entails. And it's a sentence, what they tell you have to do, right? And then they keep saying, whatever you did was wrong. It's just a game at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the game of constantly threatening jail until you're doing what they want you to do. It's just an intensifying of the domestic violence in the family court system. Tomorrow I'm facing again another case in Cabarrus County where they're trying to put me in jail for not paying the man, Brad Urban, $70,000. This man, he has 2 convictions of assault on a female, even beat up a police officer. The pictures of that to add to this podcast, where there was even an article where he had beat the police officer up in the local paper. Even while he was in jail for 6 months after attacking me, he broke the sprinkler systems in the jail. He was walking around the jail naked, painting the walls with poop, the floors with poop, admitted to doing every kind of drug there was, admitted to his bipolar behavior, admitted to all these things. Even when we had the domestic violence trial and they originally gave me a 1-year restraining order, sat on stand in front of Judge Nathaniel Knutz, threatened to kill me on stand. And this Judge Nathaniel Knutz in Cabarrus County is the same judge that gave me an order to pay this man $70,000. So I think that our podcast honestly was what kept me out of jail. Our podcast. I really think that me speaking out before them, because it was premeditated, it was they were even my ex-husband and my ex-husband, both of my ex-husband's families were even meeting to say they were going to get together with my kids over the holidays, all this weird stuff. Same thing's happening now. My second ex-husband's family that hasn't seen my children since 2019, trying to meet with my daughter before she went off to college, saying they needed to give her a present. It was just they wanted a recorded conversation trying to get dirty things about me. Mm-hmm. And my daughter that went off to college that my narcissistic ex-husband had gotten to for a little while has now realized that I'm not the problem. So she actually called me and was like, "Oh, this is odd. Like, they want me to meet them." And I was like, "Do not meet them." And she didn't even know at that point. I'm like, "I have another court case. They're wanting to put me in jail on September 5th. You know, I said, he's threatening that I'll go to jail and he'll get my younger 2 kids, which I have sole custody of the younger 2 kids, and he has supervised visitation. And Jay White is the lawyer, his crooked lawyer. He has been over DSS child support, DSS child welfare. He was over the school board. He lost that position. He was over the county contract. He lost that position. So some of the noise has, he even sat on like a bunch of I don't remember all the names of the different places that he was sitting, but even someone in his firm sat on the bars, what is it? Like, it's like
the bar association.
Yes. Well, they're all in the bar association because they're lawyers, but it's like the people that make the decision for the bar. Someone sat on that. Also, someone from their firm was in the Court of Appeals. Mm-hmm. So like the Court of Appeals, I got nowhere. I'm currently in the Supreme Court. And it's been over 6 months waiting for an order. I'm told that the order has been written, but not being held off from being filed. I don't know exactly why. But it's the corruption behind the scenes, you know? So I'm expecting sole custody of all my kids. I mean, the older ones aged out. And for all these 3 financial orders to be ended, the one that I have to pay my first ex-husband $2,800 a month, the second ex-husband $70,000, and Jay White himself over $20,000. The crazy thing is I paid the first ex-husband, over $33,000 in the last year in child support. It comes out of my check now, but I don't even think I spoke about this. We went to court in January, February time. he tried to put me, Matthew Bledsoe, in jail for not paying him child support, but I was paying the child support directly to him. So I paid him 4 checks of $2,800 a month, and they were written in the memo like October, November, December, January, or whatever it was. And then I think it started coming out of my check in February or whatever. But they literally tried to it put me in jail in February. And Jay White had told him to lie, like that those were Christmas presents to the kids. And even DSS was like, they didn't know anything about it. Oh, they had no idea that I paid him any money. I sent her the pictures of the checks. My lawyer, they give you a free lawyer when they're trying to put you in jail. My lawyer sent her all the information, but she still sat on stand and lied for Jay White. So it's just continued over and over again, perjury. And even now that my daughter has aged out, so June 1st, I would have dropped off. My income, by the way, has changed significantly. Like, my doctors have retired. I have less work. I was literally working way harder because of COVID and all that stuff, being in the nursing homes. So my income has changed to where I'm not higher than him. Like, we're pretty much the same income. And so they have that. DSS said that they were going to drop her off of the child support June 1st. I'm still getting the same amount taken out of my check 3 months later. And, I have a gatekeeper and a gag order, so I cannot file for myself for them to end the child support. So, I'm still paying $2,800 a month. And I think that's the biggest thing that my kids, it was almost like that had to happen for my kids to realize that I'm paying him $2,800 a month. He will not pay for a haircut. He will not buy a pair of shoes. He will not buy them clothes. He doesn't, just even back to school supplies, everything. I'm still paying for everything. Like, I had proof in the Supreme Court that I paid for all their, music lessons, horseback riding, all their medical, everything. I have medical on the kids. I have car insurance. I'm paying for the car payment for the child that has a car payment. All that stuff doesn't count. I'm still, that's another $1,000 a month, but I'm paying him, between car insurance, car payment, car gas, that's not to take off on the $2,800 a month. Even the judge said, when I said I pay for all this stuff, he's like, oh, well, that's just a choice.
Oh,
so you just take the car away from them, and then you never see your kids because the narcissist won't let them drive.
Right.
I mean, that's what's happening right now. My oldest daughter went to college, and she's like, I can't take my car because dad won't pay for the parking. So I paid the $800 for the parking. And she's like, I'm not allowed to take my car. So someone that is, free driving whenever they want to drive, because this all started like literally 2 weeks after she got a license, he started taking the kids, because then they could drive themselves, and she could be the mother. Even my second child now, she's the one that takes my other 2 children back and forth to practice and everything when they're with him. He doesn't do it. And I pay for the car. I pay for the car insurance. I pay for the gas,
And this is how he treats his children and the mother of his children. He has no respect for any of yous. It's all based on selfishness. He won't get the kids haircuts, won't buy them clothes, that stuff that they need. Been there, done that. Also with that child support, just because one drops off, they still keep the amount the same because they have to keep that Title 4D going and going. So people think, oh, my kid's going to graduate, it should go down. It will not go down, people. It's how they're working it. Title 4D, look it up.
Crazy.
It is.
But the only thing that they could say that they could even put me in jail for tomorrow is that I haven't paid Jay White. But I've only paid him $2,500 out of whatever, $25,000. But you can't legally put anyone in jail for not paying lawyer fees.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
It would be the same as my medical fees. I can't go put somebody in jail for not paying medical fees. It's not legal. But they've tried to put me in jail for, calling Jay White a liar. If I call Jay White a liar one more time, even though he sits on stand and his, David Goldberg sat on stand and committed perjury for him, now works in his firm. David Goldberg took over the county contract, then got fired from that. I met another person that he actually did perjury for her too, and now he works in Jay White's firm.
Yeah. Well, did Jay White even send you a bill for this amount of money he feels?
He sent me a letter saying all the $70,000 that I owed Brad Urban, which I paid him like close to $22,000. Then I had like a retirement account that was like almost $30,000 that he was supposed to sign over to him. He's never done that. And then I had a car that was sitting in my driveway that had 200,000 miles on it that the judge considered was worth $20,000, 200,000 miles, a Suburban that had really old Suburban. When he left, none of the gauges worked. Like literally you could turn the car on, you could drive it, but like you couldn't even see, like none of it was going anywhere. It was like he was driving it manically and on drugs. So I had to spend like $5,000 to even get the car running. And then they want me to give him $20,000 for a car that has 200,000 miles on it. If you look it up now, it's only worth $15,000. In 2019, it was worth nothing because everything's worth inflated amount right now. I mean, it's worth $1,500. I'm sorry, $1,500, not 15,000. So you look it up now, it's like 200,000 miles. It's worth $1,500, not 15,000. So Jay White said out in court that it was worth $20,000 when probably at the most it was worth $2,000, and the judge just went with it.
Typical. And lawyers aren't that good with figures, only when it comes to them. Oh, I'm sorry you're going through this still.
I'm just waiting on that Supreme Court order. Like, honestly, the advocate, I don't think is going to be coming tomorrow. So the problem is, like, everyone was wanting to fight. Like, we're talking to Congress. Like, about a year ago, we were all telling our stories to Congress. Every time they were doing something wrong in, like, Cabarrus County, my advocate was complaining to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice isn't doing anything.
No. I don't know why they're there.
I sent you the judicial, it's called the Judicial Standards Commission for North Carolina. It's more people are having luck with that. Like, and it looks like this. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, I have it too. And it says the North Carolina Judicial Standards Commission was established in 1973 to consider complaints against judges of the state's General Court of Justice and, where appropriate, to make recommendations for discipline for the following district court judges, superior court judges, appellate court judges, and justices. And the offices of the commissioner and deputy commissioner of the North Carolina Industrial Commission are also under the jurisdiction of North Carolina Judicial Standards Commission. And the resources for the judges, which I thought was interesting, was the Canon 6 form, the Canon 6 report filing instructions, and all this information here for the North Carolina Judicial Branch. So I thank you for sending that to me.
Yeah. I was told that we were going in the wrong place for complaints, like skipping, the bar with these lawyers. When the people in their own law firm are sitting on the bar, they're not going to do anything. And the thing is they just all say you're crazy.
Right.
And you need a psych evaluation. You're just making it all up. You're crazy. You need a psych evaluation. Okay. I have locked units of dementia patients. Okay. I understand, okay, you have a patient standing there in the hallway, like terrified, next door, these people are dead in their beds, like so and so walking down the hall must have killed them, you know, and they're off the chain being dementia, right?
Right.
But they can't, the thing is we have factual evidence. Like I have a newspaper article saying he's arrested for beating up a police officer. We have 2 convictions of assault on a female. We have, you know, a report from the jail saying he's painting the walls with poop, the floors with poop, walking around naked. But yet I'm the one that's crazy and I'm the one that's abusive by their words to the people. Like, so they haven't used any of that as evidence, but in the Supreme Court, all of that evidence is there. Like I kept filing it as evidence. So I would tell people, you can file stuff as discovery all day long. Like you can go to your file every day of the week and say discovery pages 1 through blah, 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 and file it in your file. Whatever pages this to this, file it in your file. You can say, I'm filing with the Supreme Court this document and I'm filing these 1,000 pages of evidence and attach it and put it in your district court file with all that evidence. So you can admit your evidence even though they're not admitting, and even though they're not taking it. Does that make sense? So people think they have to wait till trial to admit their evidence. When you get to trial, they'll be like, oh, you didn't admit your evidence beforehand, so you don't get your evidence. I mean, they just make up stuff every time, you know?
Yes.
Like my own lawyer, when I did have a lawyer, had a 3-inch binder of evidence and they took 1 page. So the biggest thing is they don't take discovery. There's no discovery, but there's made up just whatever the truth is by their own mouth of these narcissists, you know?
And like, sociopaths, psychopaths.
Like my 2 ex-husbands decided together on stand that I'm the abuser, not them. So that's what the truth is, because 2 people said that. And they even said my kids said this stuff, but my kids actually never said it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So they said on the stand that your kids said it. So this is all hearsay.
Yeah. They claim that your kids say it. Then you have you evaluated by a guardian ad litem. Then they have them evaluated by, you know, well, even I had no DSS case because my ex-husband called the police to the place. My kids said nothing to the police and said that didn't happen from day 1. Okay. So if my kids had said that to the police, then they would have made charges. Right. The police, my kids said, no, that didn't happen. And that, then they said, the police never called DSS. Then it was a consent order for me to have a guardian ad litem. It was a consent order for me to have a guardian ad litem with the crooked lawyer, Jay White, and my lawyer was Gregory Hunt from Mecklenburg County. So your own lawyer will sign you up for psych evaluations, guardian ad litems, supervised visitation, all kinds of stuff to keep you away from your kids, to keep paying them $20,000 a month, $10,000. I paid him $50,000. He did absolutely nothing right before court after I had paid him, you know, $15,000 just weeks before. He said, if you don't give me another $25,000, I'm not going to show up to court. And it's happening all over the world because they don't care what happens to you. No. They don't care about the truth. Yeah. So people need to say, your lawyer, they have to tell their own lawyer, you're not allowed to talk in the back without me there. You're not allowed to have conversation with the judge and the other lawyer without me present. You have to do it in open court where I can hear what you're saying. People have to say that because they are agreeing for you to do stuff and signing you up stuff against your will. And you have no idea. And they'll come out and be like, oh, the judge ordered this. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've seen a judge take two lawyers aside, even in the courtroom, to have a little powwow in the corner of the courtroom. It's like, gee, I'd like to be in on that because I have a couple things to contribute. But my lawyer, thank God, was on the up and up. But the other ones, they lie and they get away with it because I think they're all doing each other favors. And then you do have good lawyers that are trying to do the right thing. They're getting frustrated, and then they don't even want to go into that county to help anybody.
Right.
They know it's so bad.
Well, the lawyer, Gregory Hunt, he was the one, when he came into my case in Mecklenburg County, he was the one that showed me that I had consented to all this stuff to begin with. He's like, this guardian ad litem, this evaluation, this supervised visitation, all this stuff that you did was a consent order. The judge never ordered it for you to do it because there was no evidence of it. There was no evidence that you did anything wrong. You had to consent to it. And so I was like, how would I know? So then when we get to Cabarrus County, that's how I knew for him to say, I'm not consenting to that. What do you mean? He came back out and tells me the same thing. The judge orders this. How can he order? You can't have an order for a guardian ad litem unless you first have an open DSS case, unless you first have a conviction of something, unless you first have a blah, blah, blah. I had nothing. I have none of those things are existing. Nothing. It was the narcissist say so.
Mm-hmm.
7 kidnappings in 14 years. And the thing is like, he pulled me down a half a flight of stairs, pregnant with my 4th kid, and then went to the court and said I was abusive. The same thing, Brad Urban. I literally have black eyes. I have bruises all over me. He has 2 convictions of assault from the criminal court on me and my sister. There was evidence of abuse. And he said, how he said that I did it to myself, or I was making it up. You know how when you get beat up or when something happens to you, you're not telling everybody, oh, I got beat up. They just make assumptions like, oh, I did do aesthetics or whatever, that, I have a bruise on my face because of that. And I just let people run with that. You know what I mean? Like, the same thing, like, women lie all the time. They're like, oh, I remember having a black eye when I was pregnant, and with my first ex-husband, he threw a chair at me in anger, and it hit me in the face, and I had a black eye. And that that I never even got to say what happened, because he runs downstairs, acts like he's getting ice, never shows back up. And then when I come downstairs, he acts like he just saw the bruise for the first time. I immediately had a black eye. So you knew it was like a hard hit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So his whole family, he just makes up a whole different story. Like, oh, how did that happen?
Oh.
But what did happen is one of his cousins, there were baby monitors up there. Mm-hmm. And one of the cousins heard what was going on and turned the baby monitor off downstairs. So she later comes to me and what's going on. Mm-hmm. So it's like, some people do know what the truth is, but they still hide it from the rest of the family. You know what I mean? Like, he heard me say, you just hit me in the face with that chair. What do? Like, so.
And she thinks that might not happen to her someday.
Well, she did have issues with her own husband at the time. I think now they're back together, but like, I think at that time she was even separated from her own husband for similar situations of violence and stuff like that. But she had to keep quiet because he was a police officer. So she wasn't going to be able to get anywhere. So that's the thing, is like, it's shamed if you tell on the abuse. And if you go along with whatever lie, people will be like, oh, that, you know, because you can't, you just walk around, keep doing life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And they don't care. I just, as you know, I just think family court should be abolished. It's just a, you know, I was just thinking this morning before we talked, I was up at 4:30, but I was just thinking, you know, this is a stage. Family court is a stage where you've got actors.
Right.
And even like your own attorney, that Hunt fellow, you know, he was acting. This is all play acting that they all probably should get Oscars for, I'm sure, because they're doing so well at it, at screwing over their own client.
And they talk you into doing things that harm you. You know? And that, I mean, there's Amanda's story. I just talked to her, like, she's on your
Oh yeah.
podcast before. I mean, it's like we had the same story in the court, like, oh, you need to pay all this money, but also you're crazy, you know? Like, it's like, doesn't make sense. Like, if you think I'm capable of making all this money to pay you, then how am I crazy? It doesn't make sense. Like,
That's what, yes, I agree with you. I'm glad you said that. And because, as you know, I was a nurse too, and they were calling me crazy, but it's like, how does a nurse with working 23 years go batshit crazy overnight? Suddenly I'm crazy. Then they take the kids away. Then they want child support out of you. But I couldn't work because they put false allegations of emotional child abuse on me. So I don't know what they're thinking, but I noticed they're going after a lot of nurses. I don't know. It's just an observation I'm finding on this podcast.
yeah.
So frustrating. But I know. Go ahead.
The crazy thing is like, I had documents from 2017 where I tried to get a restraining order on my ex-husband. This was like my first ex-husband, because him and his wife were doing all this stuff when they first, they like just constant. And it was literally conversations of how he was like, why are you going back to school to be a nurse practitioner? You're going to be working for the rest of your life and paying me. This is 2017, like before he's already premeditated. You know, his current wife, Shannon Bledsoe, she did the same thing to her ex-husband that also was a nurse. He was a nurse, did the same thing, complained he was abusive, did all this stuff. Then she actually had a black eye and was out of work for 6 months, then took him back for more child support because she wasn't working. Well, she had this black eye and was out of work for 6 months, claimed she passed out at the spa on Valentine's Day weekend, that she went with my ex-husband to a trip.
Yeah, this is literally.
He hit her.
Yeah.
If he hit me, he's gonna hit her. She had a black eye and passed out at the spa. She claimed she was there with other girlfriends. Where were the girlfriends? Had a whole big group of girlfriends. Not one comes to testify. Who goes with their girlfriends on Valentine's Day weekend? I knew they had gone on a trip together because I had the kids.
Wow.
But yet she's like the number one person in his corner attacking me, going around to all the little people in our community in Harrisburg, like saying how crazy I am, say this, that, and the other, and that I'm abusive and I don't have my kids because of this, and I have sole custody of my younger 2 kids.
Mhm.
I had a week on, week off for 7 years until I got remarried this time.
Mhm.
To be concerned that your current husband is so concerned with his ex-wife getting remarried, manipulating and controlling her because she's getting remarried, that something's wrong with your husband, that he is that infatuated with his ex-wife.
And fixated.
Right.
In fact, that was the same. I'm glad you brought that up because even in my case, the ex was fixated on my remarrying. In fact, once I remarried, that's when all hell broke loose. Everything was fine. My career was fine. Our financials were fine until I go and remarry a wonderful person who has no anger issues. And then suddenly I'm getting hauled into court. And as you know, my story, his wife works in the courthouse as a clerk. So she knew who to set up.
She still works there after all the.
Yeah, what a liability. She still works there. And here I don't understand how they tolerate a clerk threatening a mother saying, I know everyone. I have a lot of friends in the courthouse and I'm friends with all the judges. I know a lot of people in the courthouse and I'm friends with all the judges. That's in transcript at least 2 to 3 times.
Well, that's what this lady, this wife of his Shannon Bledsoe, that's what she did in the school system. Like, she wouldn't let me come. One time they did move my kids out of the school she worked in because she and him made up stuff. Like, they wrote a letter to the principal and said I could not come into the school. There was no court order saying I couldn't come into the school. They had decided, like, they didn't get their restraining. They tried to put a restraining order on me initially in 2017 when I told you he was threatening me and doing all that stuff. The two of them tried to get a restraining order on me, and I did a counter restraining order. And I said, I'm not doing anything to them. Look at what they're doing to me. So that was my defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't give them the restraining order because literally the judge was like, just because you don't like his ex-wife doesn't mean you get to have a restraining order on her. She's done nothing to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everyone that knew me before, like people that at the kids' games or at the kids, like they would be like, she's coming up and introducing them as the mother, not the stepmother. She's introducing as the mother. And even one of my best friends, her daughter was in her class, and on the syllabus of the class, she gave me the syllabus and I put it into the exhibit because it said essentially talk shit about me in the syllabus. Like, I have sole custody of these kids because the mother is blah, blah, blah in the syllabus.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it because the stepmother I was dealing with had these kids calling her mom. It's like, no, you're not from Great Britain. You have no British background and you're not related to my kids at all. Thank you, Jesus, because thankfully they don't look like you.
Well, you know how your kids come to, you have like Mother's Day programs,
right?
And you color something for your mother and you do blah, blah, blah. My older son, they had like a program like that. And the teacher told him, you have to do this this was when they had written this lousy letter that was like, I can't come to anything, but I really could. And they said, you have to write this letter about Shannon, not about your mom, because she's the one to be coming to the Mother's Day event, right? And he had already started writing it about me. Okay. She literally took it. The teacher ripped it up and gave him a new piece of paper. Okay. Then I showed up at the Mother's Day event and he's hysterically crying. And I'm like, and he didn't want to give me the thing. And he said, I was making it about you and the teacher ripped it up and gave me another piece of paper, said I had to write it about Shannon because she was the one coming. And this teacher was friends with her.
Yeah.
So
That's coercive control, and that's child psychological abuse. That's what that teacher did to your son. Child psychological abuse and coercive control. And she should be reported.
but the crazy thing is like, God has put me, I'm in such a place now that I'm not even affected by any of that anymore because I know the truth. Does that make sense? Like, my older son has a lot of anger issues because of all the attacking of me. It was like, just that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of anger issues, and it stems from that. And the thing is like, my kids even have abandonment issues from the kidnappings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't ever abandon them, but it felt like it to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my older kids, somebody that has, their mom has been there 24/7 around the clock, was there and did everything for them. Even when I had week on and week off, I only worked during the week that I didn't have them because I was a nurse. So like, I just did my schedule where, you know, it was like I worked every other week. So they didn't really feel like I was anything but a stay-at-home mom on the time that I was with them, except for when I started to be a nurse practitioner and I had normal hours. But then I'm not exhausted all the time. I'm not working night shift for 18 years, you know, like I was exhausted all the time, like, because I had narcissistic husbands, you know. I would be pregnant, working until I'm 40 weeks pregnant outside, like cutting the grass, doing everything. Like, they wouldn't do just simple things, simple tasks. And, you know, I didn't have money to pay somebody to do it back then. So it was like, mothers just become everything. Like,
and also, you don't realize what you're marrying until several years have passed and you've had kids, and suddenly the mask is off of them and they're showing their true colors. And or we were naive and we didn't see the red flags, because I know there were some red flags, you know, but I was making excuses for the red flags because you're young and naive and you just don't get it. So we need to serve as a warning to young people. So you better get it and look at these red flags and start talking to people about these red flags of these individuals.
Because people are out to destroy you.
Oh, in so many ways.
So I guess like I was going, so you know how my car now, it's like, you know how when you get in the car, the thing just comes on, right? So I'm getting in the car right before school starts, the day before school starts. They still hadn't gotten like I had gotten all the school supplies. The kids get their first outfit. I always buy them a new outfit. Anyways, all the kids came with me. They're getting in the car, and this lawyer calls me, the free lawyer Everson that they give you so you don't go to jail or whatever. And she's supposed to be in court right now. This is the day before school is starting, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? She was like, well, I didn't tell you about it because I didn't know about it. So there's no way, you know, you could be here. So they're continuing it. And this is what. So my kids are hearing all of this.
Oh my God. Because
I'm like, you know, I had to then later give her a date or whatever.
Whoa.
This is the date for tomorrow, tomorrow at 2:00. But it's still going. It's still, so ever since finding out I have court again to now, I was told, like, before with you, I always said, okay, I'm trying not to attack the judges, you know. I'm trying to say, okay, well, maybe they just don't have the right information. They're giving them a bunch of lies and they're making decisions on the lies. Okay, so let's just don't attack the judges because they're not getting the truth up there. But at the same time, there's some point where the judges are in on it because they do see the truth. They have the information in front of them and they're still choosing to behave that way.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I was like, I'm not attacking the judges because the judges have the only way to overrule these crooked lawyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I that was my whole case. Like, it's not even judge, because even in the end in Mecklenburg County, my judge there ended up helping me in the end and was screaming at my ex-husband because all this stuff happened beneath her feet. You know what I mean?
Was that Wilhelm?
No, that was in Mecklenburg County. Her name was Gina Kohler.
Okay.
I was her first case on the bench. And by the end of it, she was literally like, you can never call DSS in Mecklenburg County. You can never call her crazy again. You can never do this, this, and this. And we have 7 days on, 7 days off. She has medical power of attorney. You have final say in like education. And like pretty much we had everything equal for 7 years and nobody was paying anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I could have made him pay me at that point, but I waived the child support because I was just a nurse, you know, and working part-time, and he was making probably $150,000 a year at that point. So over 100. So I could have made him pay me, but I didn't.
Mm.
So, because I knew it would be a fight. Like he would keep trying to get more time if he had to pay child support.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because that's the only thing that's important to them.
Right.
Like the only reason the stepmom is kissing my kid's ass and trying to get my kids to attack me is because she's being paid $2,800 a month. And that's more than she makes as a teacher, I'm sure.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Teachers make probably not that much.
And she's probably not at a decent school district either.
Yeah. I don't know how much teachers make, but I don't think even $3,000 a month. It doesn't, I mean, if nurses don't, I know nurses make a lot more than teachers do.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I don't, yeah, I mean, because I was a per diem nurse.
$1,000 a year. I don't even know what they make.
I don't know. But when I was working per diem, well, when I had such a stupid child support judge. She had it in her head that I was full-time and I was still working even under a child abuse allegation indication. And it's like, hey, stupid, I have no salary. I mean, I'm on suspension until I get exonerated, which thankfully I was. But she had it in her head that I was making close to $4,000 a month. It's like, I never did. I was always per diem. But I want everyone to be aware that this is what they do. They impute a figure and they put it on the parent. And that figure never exists. It's only in their head. And they're calling us crazy?
Well, they used a figure based on before any of the calculations. You know how like you make this amount of money and then all this stuff comes out? Like I have to pay for my office. I have to pay for like, I have to pay even for health insurance. I pay like $1,500 and something a month because I don't get matched because I am a partner in the firm. So we have to pay our own matching.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like it comes out of 2 different places, but I pay both of it. So if you add up the whole total, it's like $1,500 a month for insurance on me and the kids. That's not even including my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I should get a break for that. I should count he only pays $300 a month and I pay $1,500 a month, even though it looked like I was making more than you. You need to look at the bottom number of what I'm receiving, not before everything's taken out. So they just like, they look at like the top number before, like my, rent is taking out every month or like expenses or whatever. They're like, oh, this is the amount of income she's bringing in. Well, that's not what you're bringing in. The number is at the bottom. They can't just make up what they made up also they used my income from 2 years before during COVID, not my current income.
They do this all the time. Yeah, I don't know what to say. They've got to get rid of this Title 4D funding because for a number of reasons. But I was at Superior Court waiting to argue, and I listened to this poor guy. He was arguing, and he was a car salesman. And the thing was, you know how when you're a car salesman, even I get this. You might have one couple good months of sales, and then the next 4 months it's like, you know what I mean? And that judge didn't care. She expected him to pay. It's like, when he walked out, he lost his case. I lost my case because they have it in their heads. This is how it's going to happen. And another creepy thing that I was looking up, this is like super creepy, and you may already know this, but hang on, I've got it. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so the 42 U.S. Code section 666 is a requirement of statutorily prescribed procedures to improve effectiveness of child support enforcement. If that isn't creepy, I don't know what is.
The numbers alone, those are like the devil worship.
Yeah, because this is human trafficking through the courts. You're being trafficked. I was trafficked. Our kids were being trafficked through these courts. And, I just have no words I could go on, but go ahead.
I mean, the thing is that's why I felt like I had to speak out today, because speaking out last time, I honestly think is what kept me from going to jail. The person over the Hartselle firm came and sat in the hallway with me. I guess they had listened to this video, sat in the hallway with me and asked me questions. And it was like exact questioning about things I had said on your video. You know what I mean? It was like, there's no way else he would have known it. I didn't like come to that firm and have a conversation with them. And so all of a sudden, that got continued, where I've been threatened. I'm going to be in jail for Christmas. This was a couple days before Christmas. I'm going to be in jail for Christmas. Well, they tried to get an order for me to go to jail the day before school started. So if they could get that order the day before school started, then they can kidnap the kids while I'm in jail, my 2 younger kids, Morgan and Braden, and put them in their school system and all this stuff. Brad Urban's family, Bruce Urban and Annette Urban, are so angry at me and so infuriated at me. Even when he beat me up and dragged me across the house, when they come to get him, they're like, oh, you have a communication problem. The fact that they're still attacking me, he could have had his rights. He could have had his rights terminated. There's like 6 different points of reasonings that your rights can be terminated: abuse, like mental health, criminal conviction, all this stuff, right? He had every single one of them, all 6 of them, all 6 of them. His rights should have been terminated. The only thing that I said is like, I want my kids to still have a relationship with his family. He can have supervised visitation with the grandparents. I gave them that. Yeah. Okay. I gave them that. Okay. There was already an order for that from 2017 that we had agreed to, and we could have followed that order. Jay White told them, do not do that order. While he's in jail, I had set up for them to follow the order that we had done in mediation. While he's in jail, he told them, stop talking to her, don't get the kids, don't do any of this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And I had all the text messages and the emails back and forth to Brad Urban's father, where he's the one that created all this court stuff. We already had a court order. We already had a court order that was done in mediation that essentially said they had them every other weekend, or at least 1 weekend a month or something like that, and that he would have to have supervised visitation under them. We already had a court order that said that. We had to go, and my own lawyer, Hunt, and Jay White tell me that that order was not good enough because his rights aren't terminated. And at that time, we made that order when he was deemed incompetent. And Jay White deemed him in and out of incompetency like 3 times in 3 years to get him out of criminal charges. But then, you know, said he was okay to be over children.
Oh, that's disgusting.
So Brad Urban's family is still so angry at me. Matthew Bledsoe's family is still so angry at me. I haven't done anything to these people.
Right. Well,
what have I done to them?
Oh, but you know, I said the same thing to another friend, and they said, "Well, you don't know the lies they told their parents about you."
Well, I mean, my first ex-husband's family were spoon feeding my children margaritas. Okay. My second to my oldest daughter was drunk at 2 years old, falling over on the sand. And because I got angry about it, that's when our whole family dynamics fell apart.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Sitting me down, telling me I have a problem. For getting angry about his family spoon feeding my children alcohol. My children I was pregnant and had a 1, 2, and a 3-year-old. And I'm the problem.
This is you, and I know you know this, but this is what these personality disorders do: is they deflect and they put it back onto you. It is so wrong. You know. So, like, what's going to happen tomorrow then? Like,
I don't know. I mean, they could put me in jail for anything, for doing this video, for, you know, anything, calling the lawyer a liar.
But lawyers are liars. That's what it is. It's liars.
The ACLU is backing one of our domestic violence groups. And I mean, one of our advocacy groups is actually funding to them. And they've come out to our courthouse. They came out around the time that I got this order to pay the guy that beat me up $70,000. So they're very aware about that situation. I've like told them everything. I don't know if behind the scenes the ACLU is part of the reason why Jay White has lost all these positions, because they don't do everything like in the forefront. But I know that Jay White has been doing so many bad things to so many people, like the teachers that were standing up to the school, him and the school board, he got them fired and taken, like tried to get their license taken away and all this stuff. You know, like there's newspaper articles about how, you know, he was using the system to take people's kids. Like a grandmother had these 2 children and she went for knee surgery and came back, and one of the kids was in group home and one of them was in foster care while she's in knee surgery. And if you look at the paperwork, it's signed by Jay White instead of a judge. So Jay White did the same thing with my child support order, the one that's supposed to come out of my check. So they sent it to my, we have lawyers over our company. They send it to my lawyers and it's this paperwork and it's signed Jay White. And my lawyers are like, we cannot take, you know, it's like 27 something, almost $2,800 out of my check. We can't take this money out of her check legally unless it's the correct legal paperwork from the state. We can't just take a letter from some lawyer, just like he sent me a letter in the mail saying everything I owe to Brad Urban, that $70,000 needs to be paid to his firm. If I have paid all that money to his firm, I could still go to jail because I didn't pay it to Brad Urban, because that's not what the order says. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Make their like rules up. So that I, have been paying the money directly to Matt Bledsoe because the paperwork itself was illegal and wrong, not even the correct paperwork. So they finally send it from the state, but it was like 6 months later, and then I've never like paid child support to the state that way before. You know what I mean? So how am I supposed to know that I send a check? Like literally it was again a thing where Jay White was like, send this $2,800 to my firm. Well, child support is not his firm. He was saying to send it to the DSS office in Cabarrus County. Like he's over that office too. That's not the state. So if I send the child support checks to DSS office, that's like sending it to nowhere.
But
that's not even supposed to be true. Like he just makes up his own rules all along. So he's still over DSS child support. That's why my 18-year-old hasn't been dropped off, and I'm about to have another 18-year-old. My kids are only 15 months apart.
So when he's telling you to send the child support to the DSS office, which he oversees, so then that's fraud because it should be going to the state. And if you have another child that is turning 18, so then have you signed emancipation papers?
No.
Because, well, see, in Pennsylvania, like when the kid is getting to turn, well, he already was turning 18, but he was graduating high school. So they say whichever comes first, whatever. But they have you go down to the domestic relations child support conference and you sign off the kid. So they're aware that these children have aged out.
I have a caseworker that is supposed to be, because right now I'm not even legally allowed to file anything. I have a gatekeeper order. So they have to file it on my behalf. And I keep getting new caseworkers and they keep acting like they don't have a clue what's going on. The other caseworker didn't tell me what was going on. I didn't ever know this.
This is so terrible.
So we're just waiting on the Supreme Court to show up, because I did the Supreme Court of North Carolina in Raleigh. I didn't do the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. because I think the problem is us going to Congress a year ago, us going to the Department of Justice, DOJ. It really isn't getting anywhere. So I'm hoping this judicial standards complaints and going to the Supreme Court of Raleigh, that they're saying that they're giving me an order, is coming. They only take 1% of cases, and they've had my case for over 6 months. So you said, and everybody else has said, and the people that are helping me have said, it's in my favor, it's coming. The longer they keep it, the more likely they're doing something for you.
Right.
So, the thing is like, I'm in the church, I'm praying, I'm, like waiting on justice. But my thing is, Jesus was nailed to the cross, right? He didn't walk, he went there. I've always said that if I knew I was going to be nailed to the cross, I wouldn't go to the cross like Jesus. I would go kicking and screaming, right? Like I wouldn't just take me. Like I'm going to die for this narcissist, I'm going to be crucified for these people. But I'm in the point of my faith that I have this peace that if they do something to me, they put me in jail, Jay White immediately loses his license. Nathaniel Knutz immediately loses his license. I immediately have a federal court case where I'm going to have millions of dollars. So if God allows something to happen, it's not about them doing something to me, right? anything bad, God still has to allow to happen,
Mhm.
right? Like he allowed Jesus to die on the cross.
Mhm.
I'm not even scared anymore. Like I'm to the point where that fear and that jumpy and that, PTSD from all the pain and the trauma and everything, I have this complete peace over me
Mhm.
that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If Jay White puts me in cuffs or Judge Knutz puts me in cuffs tomorrow, immediately their job is over. It's over.
Yeah.
Their career's over. And the ACLU comes in and swoops over. Well, I think it's almost like people want that to happen
Mhm.
so that they can do their job better. Even though all that's happened already should be enough.
Exactly. Oh,
So
man.
either way, I'm not going to fear. Either way, I have everything taken care of. But at this point, what they do to you, like they did to you, they put you in jail. It ruined your career, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. They can do that to take money, like how are they going to get money from you if they ruin your career?
Oh, she still thought she could. Even when I came out of prison, she still was estimating me at this imputed figure she had in her head. And technically, I mean, that's fraud on the court on with that judge. So technically, she really shouldn't be on the bench. And again, like you said, you can't have it both ways. They can't call you crazy and expect you to work a full-time job, but you're crazy. How can you? So they shouldn't even be trying to get child support on you, off of you.
The problem is when my second ex-husband went manic and off the deep end and doing drugs again and lost his mind, his family even blamed me, but all of a sudden I was starting to make a good income, that was my fault. Even though I kept the finances separate because we knew he had this issue of like spending, right?
Uh-huh.
Somehow it was my fault that he went off the deep end because of my financial success or starting to be more successful. And so I've just paid my second ex-husband, thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. And if he goes off the deep end, even if he's partying this weekend, Labor Day weekend, I'm sure he's out partying. If something happens to him, his family still in their head think it's my fault.
Oh, yes. Yeah. They've been brainwashed.
To attack me, to make me pay him. Even though I said, okay, you're going to attack me to make me pay him. A year ago, I filed for child support on them. So Bruce and Annette Urban, they're the interveners. So they're the actual ones that have to pay child support, not him. He doesn't even he's already gotten multiple jobs since this. Like I don't even know if he has a current job. Okay. Because he doesn't keep the job for more than a couple months. Well, so because they're the interveners and they're actually the ones that I have the custody order with, he has supervised visitation. Okay. Bruce Urban would have to pay me child support. Well, so instead of paying the $70,000 made up figurative amount, I said, okay, well, we're going to court case of what he would have to pay me in child support. Jay White advised Bruce and Annette Urban not to show up at court, advised Bruce and Annette Urban not to bring their financials. And even though I had subpoenaed it all to court, they had decided, oh, we're not going to have the court case on this child support because you're not prepared. How can I be prepared if you don't bring the information? If I didn't bring the information, I'd be in jail.
Right.
And so I literally had a case, and I said, I was trying to prove that he's going to have to pay me. They're going to have to pay me more in child support. And you just take the child support from this 70,000 fictitious number that you gave and subtract it out, like even it out. He wouldn't even let me have trial. So over a year ago, we've had a filing of child support. We still haven't been heard, claiming that it was also continued because I have not been, I wasn't prepared. So the continue of the child support happened at the same time of the continuance of this contempt order. Because they make whatever you come into court for, like if you come into court to get your kids, they change the whole case to be about contempt on you. Like, your turn to have the stage. It's your turn to have the thing. I literally was supposed to go for permanent court hearing because everything that I had with my older kids was temporary. And Donna Johnson told the Court of Appeals that I could not appeal my kids' custody order because it was temporary. And I go in for permanent court and they wouldn't let me speak. They attacked me the entire time. And you were there. You were court watching. And like literally, like, but in a kind voice, like she was talking to me. The judge was just condescending in this high pitched, supposedly nice voice. It would be like talking to your dog and saying, oh, I'm going to take you to the sausage factory. If you do this one more time, you're going to go to the sausage factory. That's how she was talking to me. Like you cannot have any evidence, and you're not going to have court today, and you're not going to be able to fight for permanent custody of your kids. And guess what? We're going to give you a gag order and a gatekeeper order, and you're not going to be heard today. And my advocate that was there was not even hearing. Like, I'm not even going to be heard today. I had 7 witnesses. Everybody in the courtroom was like, even my own advocate was like, oh, well, at least she's being nicer to you. She's not screaming at you and telling you you're going to jail. She's talking to you like this. I'm like, it doesn't matter the tone of the voice. Do you hear what she's saying? And it was partly the advocate had made all these complaints to the DOJ on this judge, and she was literally retaliating. Yes. It wasn't helping me. It was just, if you're just making complaints, they're not helping you. They're making it worse. So the judicial standards should have been that should have been where the complaints were. You know?
Well, you're a nurse. I was a nurse, but when I, was kind of a nurse at the time, kind of still, but I was on the witness stand, and the attorney said, well, you've reported my wife. And I said, yeah, twice. And he said, you've reported me to the Supreme Court Disciplinary Board. Yeah, once. And he said, you've reported this judge. I said, yeah, to the AOPC. And I said, this is what nurses do. If there's wrongdoing on the floors, and this, any nurse would know this. If a previous nurse left a patient to sit in a dirty diaper for 4 hours before you come onto your shift, you have to write that nurse up. It has to be an incident report. But the judge told me that he was sick and tired of me advocating for myself, because I said, I have to be my own advocate here. I said to him, and he said, no, you're not advocating for yourself. We're tired of that. I have it in court transcript if anyone wants to look at it. But yeah, I don't know what to say. I feel bad for pro se litigants.
You're the best advocate for yourself.
Right.
No advocate for you like you're going to advocate for you, because you know all the details. You know every fact. You know every linear line of things happening, because everyone else gets the stuff mixed up. You're going to get it right.
Right.
So
and I feel sorry for all of you in North Carolina, because apparently these judges don't even look at evidence. Of course, they didn't look at my evidence either. They're just not looking at evidence.
Right. They don't. They hold the discovery, and that's fraud.
Yeah.
You know, that's fraud. But the thing is Judge Nathaniel Knutz, even though he's saying, "Oh, I'm not looking at evidence. I'm not looking at the mental health records for Brad Urban. I'm not looking at the criminal records for Brad Urban." It doesn't matter if he looks at it or not. He was on stand. He was on the bench when Brad Urban is in his orange jumpsuit on stand saying he's going to kill me with 5 other officers as a witness.
See,
And
there
he
it
is making me pay him. So he is a physical witness, not just like his word against my word. He is a witness to the truth, and he still chooses to be the liar.
God's going to deal with him.
And he's still sitting, I think it's either Presbyterian or Baptist church. It's here in Huntersville. He sits on the front row at the church.
Oh, those are the worst ones.
Just do it for political office, for political background. They just find the biggest church in the town, and they sit on the front row and pretend to be ethical. They pretend to have some sort of moral compass. Where's this? Where's Jesus? You might be full of religion, but you have no Jesus.
Right. It's all about money. So glad you came on my podcast, because I'd like to have you back on again. I've been following your story, and I'm so happy to have you in my book that was published last Saturday, Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. And your story is in my book, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you for putting me there. Yes. Thank you for being my voice in silence.
Your story needed to be told. It needs to be told. You know, all those stories in there. It's a warning to people. So I commend you.
It's evidence is happening all over the U.S. with all the stories in your book.
Mm-hmm. Well, God bless you, and keep me posted. How can people reach you if they want to ask you any questions? Do you want them to come through me?
I mean, Amy Palacios 79@gmail.com is my email. I guess they could email me there.
Okay.
Let you know, update you. I'll give you my husband's information too, in case something happens to me when we get off the call.
Definitely. Okay. Well, hey, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, as well as Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. Please join us with Amy on another exciting episode. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, and feel free to donate, buy me a coffee to keep this podcast going. And I totally thank you, Amy, for coming and talking.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. Hang on.